Hi, everybody. It's Chris Gethard, and welcome to Beautiful Anonymous. This is a very special episode. You might know that we now have Beautiful Anonymous Plus, which has a lot of extra stuff behind a paywall. And one of the things we do is that one of the tiers gets you access to follow-up calls with past callers. Now, we recorded with one of the most beloved callers in the history of the show, someone who I've become personally friends with over the years. We had a very, very intense phone call. I've often pointed to it as the call where I go, at the end of the day, there have been so many meaningful calls, but if you put my feet to the fire and said, which is the call that this show came into existence for, it would be for the episode called Love is Everywhere. Really, really intense, hard, beautiful call. And over the years, we have talked more with the caller from that episode. She was a big presence at the Beautiful Anonymous convention. And today, we're going to bring you some of her call. A big part of this is because she has a story from her past that she felt very compelled to tell. And this platform is one that has always supported her. And she's been such a big part of the show that my philosophy is that anytime you want this platform, you have more than earned the right to make that happen. That being said, you know, a smart businessman would go, you got to go behind the paywall to get it. But I don't care about being a smart businessman. This is a community. This is a person who has meant so much to the community. This is a person who has a story that needs to go farther and wider than a paywall can allow for. So I'm going to not worry about doing the financially smart thing, which is to say, hey, remember how one of our most popular callers ever is back? You have to go pay a couple bucks to hear it. That's the smart thing. What I'm going to do is what I think is the ethical, correct thing to do, which is put out the large majority of it right here on the free feed for you. Again, both because it's a community. She's a huge part of the reason why people have rallied around it as a community. Our friend Heidi. And also because this is a story that needs telling. It's a story about something dark. It's a story about something grim. It's, I have to give these warnings up top. It is about abuse. Abuse that happens to young people. And it's not easy and it's not pleasant, but it's also not something you hide behind a paywall. It's something that you get on the hilltops and you shout about. Because the more we shout about it, the more that we can take the past pain and the past trauma and use it as a dividing line to stop it from happening again as best as we can. You don't make people pay for that. Well, that being said, there is about an hour, basically that story we are putting out. But then, in the fashion that we've been doing with the bonus content, we did do the 5 questions with our caller from Love is Everywhere. We talked for about 40 more minutes. We are putting that behind the paywall because it's a good fit. Also want to be clear with this intro. I'm not here trying to pat my back and going, look what a good guy I am, putting it out for free. Just explaining to you why that felt like the move. With that, when Andrea and I sat and talked about it, this felt like the right way to do it. So just wanted to give you a heads up about that. I've met Heidi in person a number of times. I've had multiple meals with her family, her kids, her sisters, her husband. Really incredible people. And just the amount of times that we've now connected over painful things in the past really bums me out. Because they're great people and she's a great person and nobody deserves any of this stuff, let alone all of it. And that being said, I'll also put this out here. If you ever are lucky enough to cross paths with this caller, you will also agree. What a miraculous, cool-ass person that's fun to talk to and hang out with. On top of, despite of, in addition to all of these things that she has shared with us on the show. So anyway, enjoy it, everybody. And all I'll ask is this. Know that more cynical people, maybe even more fiscally intelligent people would go, it's behind the paywall, so come pay me for it. I don't want to do that. That wouldn't be cool. I will say, if you're thinking about signing up, maybe this can be the thing that gets you to go, fine, you know what, I've been thinking about giving that stuff a shot. I'll go do it anyway because it's great. It's great stuff back there. Anyway, I'll stop rambling. You guys get what I'm saying. It's one of our best callers ever, back with another story that is so head-spinning and infuriating and baffling, yet genuine and human and heartfelt. And I continuously cannot believe how Heidi steps up to the plate, takes the hard things in life and says, and now what we'll do is we'll share them to get conversations going, to get movement happening, to get lines drawn in the sand, to get openness to replace hiding and fear. Blows my mind. Very, very, very lucky to have ever started this show, if the only thing it ever led to was conversations with this person. And it's led to even more than that in my life. Thank you all so much for being a part of it. Enjoy. Hi, everybody. Chris Gethard. Welcome to Beautiful Anonymous. As always, I feel lucky talking to you. Today, I feel particularly lucky because we are catching up with someone who is woven right into the DNA of this show. And I know that I can speak to that personally, and I've heard many, many other people say the same thing. You know, with the Facebook group, we ask a couple questions. Have you read the rules? And they have to say yes. And what's your favorite episode? And you know what's funny about that, everybody? If you ever join the Facebook group, is I'm not going to let you, it's not like I'll reject you if you say my favorite episode is this one. And I go, I don't like that one. We're just making sure you're not a bot. And also there's a lot of people who join the Facebook group thinking we're connected to the hackers group Anonymous, which we are not. So it's just to make sure they know what the podcast is. Many people say their favorite episode is an episode called Love is Everywhere, which was unfortunately the only flaw with this episode is that it was unfortunately number 69. Ha ha ha. Otherwise, it was a heartbreaking conversation, but also one of the most beautiful conversations I've ever had. And since then, we have followed up with the caller, both with calls, with appearances at Beautiful Anonymous, with all sorts of things that go above and beyond. And on a personal level, every time I travel to certain areas of the country, we wind up getting food. I have now met not just our caller's husband, but I think at this point, most of her kids, her sisters, I've met everybody. And we were talking, and I think this might be a first. Usually we use the episode title. Like usually I would say, welcome back, love is everywhere. But at this point that would feel so silly because we've had so many meals together. So I want to welcome my friend Heidi back to the show. How are you, Heidi?
Great. How are you doing?
I would say in general, pretty good. There's always ups and downs, but I'm going to say pretty good. How about you?
Same. That seems norm for the most part of my life. That's pretty much how I'm doing. Pretty good. I feel like there's times in life that are just the absolute best, and then some that are the absolute worst, but most of the time pretty good. And I know you've had a hard few weeks from things that you've shared, and
yeah,
I am aware of that and hope things are going better for you.
Thank you so much. And I have to say, I'll put the Beautiful Anonymous listeners up against anybody. People have reached out and said, hey man, I hope you're doing well, while also completely respecting the privacy of what I was dealing with, which, just to let everybody know, I'm fine and everybody in my life is doing good, even if there was some very real life stuff happening back in May. So thank you for checking in. Things are a lot better. Yeah.
Good. I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah, one of those stretches, and I know you are obviously well acquainted with these, and I know I'm being vague, and I'm not trying to manipulate that for anybody listening, but just to say, like, you sometimes have stretches in life where things happen, and you go, oh, I'm different than I was 4 days ago. I'm different than I was 3 weeks ago. Like, this thing happened. and I had to grow up in ways that I didn't see coming. And I'm a different person moving forward. And I don't know if that's true of everybody else who was even involved in this. This was a situation that I was not the centerpiece of, but I know you've been through a number of those yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
That's real
They're
life, right?
they put life into focus and help you kind of evaluate what matters most and what you want to do going forward. Those moments like that.
Yeah.
But I would rather just not have any of them and just like coast along in life.
Oh, and just be carefree. You know what I will say?
Carefree. How would it be?
I'm a little less carefree than I was a month ago. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
I can tell you that.
Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. But you know what I will say, without revealing any details that are someone else's business, but the part of it that I can say that kind of does belong to me, that was a little shocking, was I just turned 44, and a lot of the stuff that we're talking about did coincide with my birthday week. And it was the first situation in my life where something really serious happened, and all the parties connected to it just kind of turned and looked in my direction and went, handle it. What do we do? How do we handle this? You, Chris, the person who is not at the center of this, you tell us where to go. And I was both very flattered by that and took that responsibility seriously, and am generally very proud of the fact that I stepped up for a lot of people that I love in a time of need, and also went, man, if I'm the emotional bedrock for this group of people, that's a pretty concerning place to land, because it's not like I'm notorious for my emotional resilience, you know? So it was just one of those things of adulthood. You turn around, you go, oh, you're in your 40s, you're not a kid. Your parents aren't going to handle it. In fact, parents might turn to you and say, how do we handle it? It was the first time where I was in one of those situations where everybody was kind of looking at me to lead the charge on something. And I went, pardon my French, I was just like, what? Like, what the fuck? Like, I'm the point person and there's no guidance on this. I'm giving everybody else guidance and I don't know how to handle any of it. But everybody's following my gut. And I know you've been there. I know you've been there.
Yeah, totally.
So many
times.
But
we just really don't even know, right? That's what's so crazy about life. Like all these situations that we have to navigate that who knows what's right? Who knows what we should do? And you just have to, like you say, trust your gut and hope that it turns out like it's supposed to. Yeah, it's tricky. Hard to be an adult.
And then one of those things too that you learn about real life where you go, and this is true, you know, parenting brings it into perspective, and adulthood in general. I think one of the things that, like, there's certain people who don't ever want to grow up. And one of the things you notice that they don't develop this ability of, like, you grow up enough and you have this ability where you go, like, I guess if I just choose not to panic, maybe no one else will panic.
There you go.
And that will at least be the starting point for something.
Right.
But I want to panic. But maybe if I just don't, no one else will. And you're just kind of hoping that literally all of life doesn't call your bluff on that. It's a weird feeling.
Right. And also, I think it is helpful as we age and then go through hard things, and just to be able to see things like time heals, and also that things work themselves out eventually, usually. Like those hard times do pass and then the good times come back again. So just that cycle of life.
Absolutely. And you hope that it kind of has that forest fire effect, right? Of like, well, sometimes the forest burns down, but then it means that the forest has more fertile soil to regrow even stronger, and it's cleansing and it's harsh and brutal, but it's a reset button that is ultimately long-term productive. All these things that we know that are still not easy to live with. That being
Still not
said,
easy.
you're the best and you always look out for me. That is a very long answer of how I'm doing. I would like to now, I know we've checked in a more cursory way, but how are you doing?
I am doing well. Oregon is a hard place to live a lot of the year, and then it's the best place to live for a short time of the year because it is so beautiful in the summertime. So we're just getting to that sunny, gorgeous blue skies and everything's so green and beautiful. That does mean that there's extra pollen in the air because there's so many plants. So been dealing with allergies or our whole family. We're going through like a Kleenex box a day, it feels like, because it's just managing all that. But that's as bad as it gets right now. Other than that, I have college kids home for the summer, and my youngest is about to get out for school. And so we'll be doing summer things and all the fun that comes with that. So doing well.
The pollen you mentioned, we have it here in New Jersey as well. And as a homeowner now, I have to go up and clean the gutters. And sometimes that involves scooping literal handfuls of pollen out of them.
Yikes.
And then just like my every pore in my face closing at once, and me feeling like I haven't had water in 8 months, and just sneezing through my dust face. Anyway.
Yes.
Anyway.
Kind of how it's been around our house.
Anyway. I'm not sure how much you're looking to dive into this. One of the reasons, also, you'll be very charmed by this, I think. You emailed me and said, hey, there's some stuff that I've been thinking a lot about, writing a lot about, might be a good time to come back on the show if that's cool. And I touched base with Andrea, and Andrea and I both had the same exact reaction, which is, Heidi tells us when it's not a matter of us being like, oh, we'll figure out when we can fit you in. It's like, oh, you want to touch base with the community? You let us know when. We'll pause everything else. And, I don't think any of the other callers would be offended to hear you're in pretty rarefied air with that. So I'm not sure how much you want to dive into kind of what's been on your mind and what you've been putting out there.
Yeah. So I appreciate your willingness to let me come on and share my thoughts. I just really feel the power of stories and sharing other stories, which is what makes your podcast so awesome, is that you allow every kind of story to exist and for other people to hear these stories. And just with my first call, I felt the power of that in that sharing, and then the community, being there and lifting us up in our story. And I've also been super inspired by so many other people's stories that they have shared, and felt the power of that in my own life as well. And one of those stories that was before before I even got on initially was the story I made out with my teacher. I think that was the name of it. And that story that that person was brave enough to share opened up some doors for me to be able to share a story that is actually very similar to that story, and was like the start of me facing some things that I dealt with in my past and being able to see them in a different light and for what they really are. And then since then, just working through that experience and finding finding ways to be able to free myself of that and also share it with other people. So recently I wrote out what happened to me as a teenager and shared it online, and had a lot of feedback, which was very heartbreaking, and also just a reminder of the power of our stories, but just a lot of people also saying, thanks for sharing your story. It helps me want to share mine, and seeing like how much abuse happens and how much I feel like the more these kind of stories are shared, I'm hopeful that will make it so that there are less stories like this to be shared?
I have to tell you, I have been eating IQ bars as my breakfast every morning for weeks. They are great. They taste good. They have plant protein in there. They're quick. They're good for me as I try to maintain some semblance of a healthy weight. They're a good brain boosting breakfast. I've also been using that IQ mix. The pink lemonade flavor has been a standard go-to for me. But what I most want to tell you about, so IQ Bar, full disclosure, they sent over some sampler packs of their stuff. And I've had IQ Bar many times in my life. And when that sampler pack showed up, my wife, I didn't even know she felt this way. She goes, tell me they have the coffee. Do they have the coffee sticks? The next morning, no joke, I was awake before her. She came into the kitchen in the morning going, coffee stick. I want my coffee stick, and did a little coffee stick dance about their IQ Joe. So my wife is a little obsessed with the IQ Joe product that IQ Bar puts out. Okay, between those bars, between the mixes, the mix, by the way, you get a little flavor in your hydration. You also get a lot of electrolytes and all sorts of stuff in there. You can power up your life with superior brain and body nutrition products from IQ Bar. Those plant protein bars are perfect. They're low carb. They're grab and go. The IQ Mix is a zero sugar hydration drink. Get those electrolytes super fast. The IQ Joe mushroom coffee, I'm telling you, there's magnesium in there. There's all sorts of stuff. But what I can tell you is that my wife did a happy dance in our kitchen when she realized that we had some in the house. If there's anything that will get you to try this product, it's to know that my lovely wife did a happy dance over the IQ Joe product. She loves it. Start each day right with IQ Bar's brain and body boosting bars, hydration mixes, and mushroom coffees. Their ultimate sampler pack includes all three. You get 7 IQ Bar flavors, 4 IQ Mix flavors, and 4 IQ Joe flavors. And today, our listeners get an exclusive offer of 20% off plus free shipping. You go ahead and text BEAUTIFUL to 64,000. That's 64000. Text the word BEAUTIFUL. You get all that. That sampler pack, by the way, it's a great way to try all the IQ Bar products and flavors, which, let's note, all their products are free from gluten, dairy, soy, GMOs, artificial sweeteners. So if you're out there and you're super into fitness, you're running a marathon, these will help you out. If you have errands to run, you need a little energy boost, these will help you out. Keep some in the car. IQ Bar empowers doers with superior brain and body nutrition. These plant protein bars are packed with high-quality ingredients. They're going to keep you physically and mentally fit. Vegan, gluten-free, low in sugar and carbs. All the flavors are good, by the way. All the flavors are good. The wild blueberry, it's no joke. IQ Bar makes the #1 brain and body nutrition bar. Hydration mix. Instant coffee that makes my wife dance out of happiness. There's over 10,000 5-star reviews and counting. Refuel smarter with IQ Bar's ultimate sampler pack. That's 7 IQ Bars, 4 IQ Mix sticks, and 4 IQ Joe sticks. And now our special podcast listeners, you're going to get 20% off all IQ Bar products. You get free shipping. You want that 20% off? Text the word BEAUTIFUL to 64,000. Get your discount. Text BEAUTIFUL to 64000. That's BEAUTIFUL. Text it to 64,000.
The more these kind of stories are shared, I'm hopeful that will make it so that there are less stories like this to be shared. So that's why I reached out, because I know your community is so good at, it just seems like a safe place where I can share this story. And also, once again, I come with a heavy thing to share. I guess that's my role on this podcast, is to share all the heavy things. I actually really do have a really lovely, happy life a lot of the time. But...
And you're not the only one who shares the heavy things on this show. Okay. You're far from alone on that, as you know.
I'm really good at it.
Yeah. And I can say, too, you and I have met, we've had at least 3 meals together, at least. More, I think. So. At least 3 when I was out west, plus Beautiful Con Anonymous, we caught up. Like, I can vouch for you. Like, when I hang out with you, it's not like I feel like I'm walking onto the set of a Depeche Mode video. Like, it's not macabre and grim and goth. Like, you're a very happy person with a warm smile and kind words. Like, truly one of the happier people I've been around. And yet on this particular show, for
Yes.
60 to 70 minutes at a time. You do sometimes every few years
I
show up.
just,
I've read the essay you're talking about, so I know what's coming. And
yes. Yes.
brutal, brutal.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I've experienced hard things in my life for sure. And I think because of that, I, seek joy more. I really try and when I can be happy, I definitely fight for it. So most of my life, I just am pretty happy. But this is a story that happened to me, yeah, when I was a teenager. Did I just start telling
Totally up to you.
what
And I
happened?
will try to be
Yeah.
respectful
Okay.
with any interjections along the way.
Yes, please do. Just stop me because I would love to just have a discussion about it too, and hear your thoughts. So when I was 15, 16, we had a family move onto our street, and I grew up in Orem, Utah, which is really the heart of the Mormon community. So I was raised in the Mormon faith. I since left a few years ago, and I think that's also been helpful for me to be able to see this story in a different light, not in the faith, but just outside of it. And anyway, so our communities in Utah, in that the heart of the church, are the majority of the people on the street are of the same faith, and so everyone goes to church together. So it's pretty much like two streets. We're all in church together and school together. The majority of the people in my school were also Mormon, and so that was just the community that I was raised in. And so this family moved into our what I'll call it's called a ward. So that's like the local group, right? It's broken into little sections, and you're in your ward, your congregation. And we just our family became fast friends with their family. And I was so our parents were friends, and I was kind of friends with the kids. They were younger than me, but still friendly with them. And our families would get together. And our family wasn't we didn't normally get together with other families. It wasn't something that we did a whole lot. And so this was kind of a new exciting thing. And we would go to their house for things, and they'd come to our house for things, just like barbecues outside or game nights. So the husband of the family, I'm just going to call him, in my essay that I wrote about this and shared, I just refer to him by his first initial, just because I reached out to his wife before publishing all this and just let her know I was going to, and that was her one request, is that I not use full names, so out of respect for her. So D is what I'm going to call him on this. But he was a very exciting new person on the street. Like, he just was fun and outgoing, and brought things into my life that I had not experienced. He took the other youth in my congregation. He took us rappelling up in the canyons in Utah, and I loved that. And he took me and my sister to a Broadway play, and I loved that. And he just took an interest in what felt like me and my sister at that time. She's just a year younger than me, so we spent a lot of time with his family and his wife, and just doing things as a family. And so then they asked us to go to help, like, nanny for a road trip that they were going on to see family. And on that road trip, he just showed more interest in me. And for me, it was just flattering, because I was a young 16-year-old and he was new and exciting. And I also didn't know what to make of it. And then he, so during that trip, he would just maybe look at me longer than he should, or brush past me, or, just touches that lingered. And then when shortly after we got home from that, our families were together again, and we were like in his basement playing pool on his pool table. And after, when it was time to leave, he kind of held me back and kissed me, French kissed me, stuck his tongue down my throat. Sorry. And he, and that was the start of a relationship that lasted quite a while. Um, anyway, that's like the setup for that. What happened? Anything you want to add so far, or should I just keep chatting?
No, I mean, first of all, obviously, it's heartbreaking to hear that you got put in that situation. I know when I read that part of your essay of, there's other people right there and he just grabs you back. I'm like, whoa, that is so clearly an effort to like sweep a kid off her feet. But also from the adult perspective, you sit there and you go, it's really dark. It's really dark to know that he put you in this position of like, well, he's going to learn very quickly if you say something right now, or if you're the type of person who's going to stay silent about this. He's going to learn in this moment, which seems so strategic in a way and also so risky in a way. And when you say this relationship wound up lasting quite a while, I do find myself curious. And again, I read an essay you wrote about this, so I know some of these things, but how long did it go on for as we deal with the rest of this? How much time are we talking about as far as when it unfolded?
Yeah, so I was 16, almost 17 when that first happened. And then I would say we were romantically involved for the next, I don't remember the dates exactly. And I journaled and wrote a lot of letters to one friend in particular during this time, but later I got rid of all of that. So it is a little hazy, but I know it was at least a year of romantically being involved. And I just need to say from the out right off that we never had intercourse, but we were physically active other ways too. So it was emotionally, I was very attached to him, but also, we kissed a lot and just a lot of making out. So, and that lasted on and off, I'd say, for a good, it could have even been a year and a half, 2 years. I really can't. There was a lot going on in that time in my life, but longer, it should have never started, but yeah, too long
Yeah.
for sure.
I have some reactions to that, the types of things you can't put in an essay, but I think you and I are friends at this point. So can I air out a reaction to one thing?
Please.
Here's something that is gross. It also might make you laugh in a dark way, but I do also kind of mean it, where I sit here and I go, first of all, and you're a very kind person and you were raised Mormon, so you don't curse as much, but the Jersey in me does come out when I hear things like this. So I'll probably be cursing a bunch. And I hope you get some catharsis from that. I hope you get some East Coast catharsis.
I want it.
I can start saying this guy puts you through some fucking bullshit and I don't like it. And I sit here and the first thing, and I'm just going to curse a lot because it's you. And again, the first thing this motherfucker is getting me mad about, there's so many things, but one of the first things, I sit here and I go, I'm now sitting here and I am left to wonder, what's creepier? Seducing a teenager and going all the way, or seducing a teenager and like making out on a regular basis with a child? I sit here and I get mad that that's even a thought that I have to have. Which is the creepier way to corrupt a child's innocence? Right. I sit there, I get mad that thought has to pop into my head where I go, oh, I think it might be weirder to like make out with a teenager when you're a grown up all the time. And then I sit there and I go, I don't ever want that to convert into a thought in my head of like, oh, would I think it would be better if he had pushed it further and you guys had gone all the way? And that's part of the weird. It's part of the weird control and the weird thing where this person who had all the power sets the power dynamic and sets the term of that conversation. Right. What we're doing is not that bad. And then
Right. Yep.
I get to sit
Yep.
here and be your friend all these years later. And now
Right.
you and I have to sit here and go, which one's weirder and grosser? You don't, who even knows? And everyone's going to have a different opinion.
Yeah,
And I hate that that's
for sure.
even all these years later, it feels like he gets to frame even that conversation. And I hate it.
Right. Well, and I think I mean, it really is quite disturbing, all of that, because of how he framed it all as well, because there was such a big religious component to this, because I mean, he was a leader in our congregation, and I looked up to him as this like righteous person. That was something that was important to me, because I was trying, there's so many in the to be a Mormon, there's just a lot of restrictions, a lot of things that you have to do, a lot of parameters, and those were all really important to me. So he was able to take my and I couldn't see any of this for what it was for way too long. Like, I'm talking decades after it happened, for me to be able to see how much he manipulated me. Because for decades, I still was like, well, he just loved me, and there was nothing he could do. I mean, it's gross how, and I think that's what's interesting about sharing these stories, is that when you can step outside of it and see it for what it is, like I said, that when you talk to that person that I made out with my teacher, your reactions to that, I was able to be like, oh, wait, I was abused. I was totally mistreated. And it took me so long. To be able to really figure that out. So he used religion and he took me to, so the Mormon church has temples, and that's where you aspire to be married, in a temple. That's because then you make promises with each other and with God. It's all pretty complicated, but he would take me to these, like, to a temple that was far from our home, like an hour and a half away, so that people we knew didn't see us. He needed to hide, but we would walk on those temple grounds and talk about how our marriage someday. So he was using this thing that was so important to me, to manipulate this relationship. And you can't have sex before marriage. And so obviously that was not going to happen, because we were righteous and we were doing what we needed to, so that someday we could be married together. So just twisting it and using what was important to me to get what he wanted. And then I ended up working for him.
More power dynamic. So he became your boss as well.
I know. He was my boss as well. So a leader in my church, and my parents' best friend, my boss. And it was a printing company. And so he taught me how to develop the prints in the dark room. And then that's where we would make out. And then he also hired my sister and my brother, and my dad went into business with him as well. So he's able to just play this game where he has all these different pieces to it that I can see now, that just made it all the more thrilling and all the more disturbing.
So were you cognizant of it back then, of the idea that, oh, if I ever blow the whistle on this, literally my entire family loses their jobs? Like, was that something that was in your head ever?
No, because he so masterfully groomed me that I was deeply in love with him. Like, why would I ever do that to him? Like, that was my thought. And he was able to sustain that I'm just now, this is like 30 years ago, and I'm just now able to share this story publicly, and not because I carried so much. And I think that's what's so interesting about abuse and why these stories don't get shared, is because of how what's the right word, groomed or manipulated or whatever, like what the abuser does to those that are abused, that makes it so impossible to share. And I feel like my story, like, it's awful and terrible, but people can people's stories are way more horrific. And so it makes sense that people can't share these stories. And then these people get to just live their life and do what they want. I mean, he still today teaches high school math, and nobody has ever known what happened, that he was able to go on with his life. And because I did not have the power to share for years to protect him, because I thought I loved him, and then for years and then after that to protect his family, and then he gets off easy from it. So crazy.
It is really remarkable, and so many people have their version of this, not always related to abuse necessarily, but it is really remarkable. You think of how, whether it's that kids rationalize or are resilient or, as you said, can be manipulated. You sit here and you go, as a middle-aged person, I can tell stories about my childhood, and I certainly do this. And I sometimes have converted these stories into humor that I share on stage, sometimes even on television, which I've now grown old enough to not know that that's not always been the most healthy tactic. But point being, you can sometimes take these stories of things that are really traumatic, and you sit there, you go, "Oh, it wasn't that bad," or like, "Oh, that was wild, but unique to me." And then you get to middle age, which everybody complains about middle age, but one of the things that you do is you sit here and you go, "Oh no, if a young person in my life now told me that something was happening to them that walked the exact same path of what happened to me, I'd step in immediate. I would never let that happen to someone else." And I've spent my whole life rationalizing that it happened to me.
Yeah, totally. No, that's exactly, and that's a lot of why I wanted to share it too. It's so that some 16 or 17-year-old girl could read it and be like, "Oh, wait, that is what's happening to me," and be able to see their situation differently. I feel like when I was that age, these things were not talked about, or at least not to me. Like I never knew about any sexual abuse, I don't think. Like it just was really hush hush, and maybe that was part of where I was raised. I don't know. I just didn't hear about it. And that does not do anybody a service to keep these stories hidden, because then it makes it way too easy for them to continue. And so now that I can see, especially when my kids turned 16, because I felt really mature and grown up. And I mean, obviously I must have been, because this older man was interested in me. And so I just assumed I was different than other 16-year-olds, and that, I don't know. Anyways, when my kids turned that age, I was like, oh no, that's 6-year-olds are babies. They're just young. They don't know any better. And if they're going to get this attention, they don't, they can't give consent at that age. They're not capable. Their brains are not formed. Like just being able to see it, to know my children so well, and to see that there is no place where there is no 16-year-old or 17-year-old that is mature enough to handle that kind of situations, but they feel like they are. And so they can find themselves in these kind of situations.
And so you start to sit there, I'm sure. And again, I don't want to put any words in your mouth, and I do not want to bring up your kids in any way that is out of bounds, but I'm sure you sit there, as you say, you see your own kids when you're 16, and you go, oh, them sorting out those feelings with another 16-year-old or a 17 or maybe 18-year-old. Like, yeah, you sort that out. And I get it. You don't sort them out with somebody who's a middle-aged married guy who is like a town pillar that's instantaneously identifiable as weird from that perspective. Again, you are a much nicer person than me, and I do have a lot of East Coast anger in me. I
have a lot of anger too. I just keep it real controlled, probably more than I should.
Well, I've also come to realize, like, this show, as we've always said, is very popular with a lot of moms and middle-aged women. And I sometimes have realized that for some reason I am blessed in a way where I am able to connect with that demographic. And sometimes maybe I say things that they are happy. Maybe I can be the mouthpiece. Like for you,
Yes.
I'm
Say it.
sitting here and wondering, like, when your kids hit 16, 17, is that the first time that it turned around to you? Like, you turned around and it occurred to you, like, I could fucking kill that guy for what he did to me. Like, is it when you start to look at it through the lens of like, holy shit, I can see who I was now. I couldn't see who I was then. There's all sorts of things people try in order to get better sleep, and I get it. I'm someone who needs better sleep. I mean, there's people out there who are running their noise machines, right? Doing all the research on the best type of white noise machine. People who cut off their eating at a certain time of night. People who do yoga right before bed. You can try any of these, but maybe one quick thing you can do is transform your sleep right away with Boll & Branch. The signature hemmed sheets from Boll & Branch are a bestseller for a reason. They feel buttery to the touch. They're super breathable. They're perfect for both cooler and warmer weather. Their signature sheets are made with 100% organic cotton using the highest quality thread on earth. Boll & Branch signature sheets come in 10 versatile colors and all sizes from twin up to California King. I've slept on Boll & Branch sheets. I will tell you, you can feel the difference. And I know that sense of tossing and turning, waking up in the middle of the night, not being able to get back to sleep. I have dealt with it. And I can tell you, honestly, that Boll & Branch is a quality product. And that when you're sleeping in those sheets, there's just less nonsense that happens throughout the night. I don't know how else to say it. They feel better than other sheets. Boll & Branch sheets are loved by millions of sleepers. Look it up. Their sheets fit the deepest mattresses. They also do something that I, as someone who's not good at the most basic aspects of life, I really appreciate this. They label the top. They label the bottom. So when you're making the bed, you're not going to get halfway through and realize that you did it wrong. Right there, everybody should be lining up to get Boll & Branch sheets. Boll & Branch also gives you a 30-night worry-free guarantee, free shipping, and returns on all U.S. orders. Sleep better at night with Boll & Branch sheets. Get 15% off plus free shipping on your first set of sheets at bollandbranch.com/beautiful. That's Boll & Branch, BOLLANDBRANCH.com/beautiful. You'll get 15% off. You'll get free shipping. Exclusions apply. See site for details. School year is almost here. And if you're someone with a family, that means there's so many moving parts, right? There's your schedule. There's the schedules of the other adults in the house, and then all the kids. Everybody's moving in 10 different directions at the same time. There's demands on everybody's schedules. How do you make sure everybody knows what they're doing? How do you keep all those plates in the air? How do you make sure all the chores get done, that the homework gets done, and also leave enough time for soccer practice, let alone time to actually be a functioning human being on your own? It's difficult, but it doesn't have to be. You can adapt to that new school year right now. Go ahead. The Skylight calendar gets it going. The mental load of parenting is real, but this school year, there's help. Enter the Skylight calendar. I'm looking at my Skylight calendar right now. It is on my desk in front of me. It is an actual game changer. And I'm someone who juggles the schedules of a guy who inexplicably has like 3.5 full-time jobs at any given time. I don't know how I'd get through the day without my Skylight calendar. It's a smart touchscreen calendar. It's an organizer for all your chores, groceries, meals, and your to-do lists. It automatically syncs Google, Apple, and other digital calendars your family uses, shows them all together on one big, beautiful touchscreen display. I'm telling you, it seems so simple. It is like taking all the best parts of technology, leaving out all the unnecessary, confusing bells and whistles, and giving you the thing you need most while using the aspects of technology that only make it better. It's basically a big giant calendar where a line tracks where you're at in the day, and it shows you all the things that are coming up and where you're at. It's really well-made technology that's tapping into simplicity. It's awesome. It's easy to set up. It's easy to use. The 15-inch size one is wall mountable. They also have a 10-inch size, and it syncs events from all your existing calendars. Like I said, so if somebody's on a Google Calendar and other people are on Apple, You can set it up through the Skylight mobile app. They all show up on one calendar. You see everybody's schedule in the same place at the same time. You can color code those events so that you have an easy visual map of the day or the week. There's a chore chart that helps establish positive habits and routines, allowing the family to manage household tasks, which, by the way, kids love because you get to check things off and you get to make it like a game for them and they get to see their progress, and emoji celebrations when chores are checked off. It's, like I said, taking the smartest, best aspects of technology and merging them with something aimed at making your life simple. Okay? All kinds of things. Are you completely overwhelmed by all the event flyers coming into your home? Use the magic import feature. You can add them to your calendar in seconds. Email your device a photo, a PDF, an email, whatever. With the event information, boom, it's right in there. Like I said, simplicity and technology working together to make your life simpler. You can do your dinner planning on your grocery list, to-do list, daily weather display, a weather forecast, kid approved, parent lifesaver, and it can also be used as a digital picture frame. 100% satisfaction guaranteed. If you don't love the Skylight calendar, you'll receive a full refund. There's a 120-day money-back guarantee and free returns. I love mine. I rely on it every single day. I don't know how I can be clearer than that. As a special limited-time offer for our listeners, you get $40 off your purchase of a Skylight calendar when you go to skylightcal.com/stories. That's SKYLIGHTCAL.com/stories. Like, is it when you start to look at it through the lens of like, holy shit, I can see who I was now. I couldn't see who I was then.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. And seeing my kids at that age, and then my friends that were older, and thinking about them doing something like that with because that's what it was, right? It was the best friend, which is unfortunately that's what happens all the time.
What a gross
it's the family
thing to
member
have to start to think about.
So to be able to, and then I shared with my kids this story, and I was like, I just need you to know this is so and so that we hang out with. And I don't want to say it in like, now you should be afraid of that person, but you have to be aware. You have to be aware of all the people, and you have to know what is right and what is not right. And if we don't talk about it, a kid is not going to always know. That's how I felt. Like I was able to get swept up that. And I know even if we do talk about it, it still unfortunately happens all the time. But I think it does give power to youth when they can hear these things. And that's why I love my son, my middle schooler talks about, we have to talk about consent all the time. And he's just so irritated by how much they have to talk about consent. And I'm like, I love that you know the word consent and you know how important it is. And I love that they're talking about it all the time. And he'll even, like if he's mad at me and I try and give him a hug, you don't have my consent to give me a hug. And I'm like, good for you. I love it. I wish I could give you a hug right now, but I like that you are able to say those words. So yes, being that with my kids and being able to share with them, like this happens, unfortunately, too much and still too much. Yes.
So many things. I mean, so many things I look at where I go, hearing that your kid is annoyed at how often consent is brought up as a concept. Mm-hmm. And I sit here and I go, I get why he's irritated by that, but compared to our childhood, wow, are there going to be so many people who understand how to blow the whistle on stuff and also respond when the whistle is blown.
Yes.
I sit here and I think about there are people in life who, and again, my politics show up on the show once in a while. Not everybody shares these politics, but I sit here and I go, there are people who are now going to bat and trying to, a lot of schools have started having these things called DEI days, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And there are people who are now going to bat saying, why are we forcing diversity, equity, and inclusion into our school curriculums? And I just sit here and I go, well, maybe because I went to a high school with 1,600 kids. And when I look back, I was there for 4 years with kids. It's actually 1,600 at any given time. So you figure The 3 years who graduated after me and the 3 years who came up behind me, like we're talking about 2,000 kids. And to my knowledge, not one of them was comfortable saying that they were queer on any level. No one came out of the closet when I was in high school in New Jersey in the 90s. And I sit here and I go, so if we have DEI days and you feel like that's annoying, but it means that a kid can admit that they're gay or bi, or that they feel like maybe they want to experiment with how they present themselves in terms of gender, like, all right, it annoys the older generations, and a bunch of baby boomer comedians are complete. Also, a note to every comedian. The second you start making your joke about trans and pronouns now, just understand that you're making a joke that 45 other people have already done. So if you're not going to obey the rules of comedy, which is that if someone else got to it first, you better have a really unique take that takes it further than they did, which none of you do. It's the same fucking joke every time. So by the way, if not, then you're just antagonizing trans people. And that comes from me, a comedian of 24 years. Like, it's hack. It's hack. It's been done. Everybody else is making the jokes, so let's move on. But point being, if having a DEI day means that kids feel more safe, then yeah, let's annoy people with DEI days. Let's annoy people with conversations about consent. Let's annoy people with ways to identify abuse. And let's then hope that none of them need to use any of that stuff, but let's equip them with the tools that we didn't have. Sorry, rant over. Also,
absolutely. No.
Heidi, I'm going to warn you, as long as you have time, this episode's going to go long because me and you can get going.
There's a lot we can say. No, I feel the same because I've seen people fight sex ed in the schools as well, and stories like mine and so many others are why it has to exist. Because I get that parents want to be the one to teach their children, but the parents are not going to always teach their children about these things, and so they need to be shared with these kids so that they can learn about that. We have to do something because there's way too much abuse, and then also people that feel scared to be themselves. And I think it's beautiful. Oregon is definitely very good about inclusion and all the things. And I have talked to friends that that's hard because they are so inclusive, but I think it's a beautiful thing. And I think we're making strides in helping people feel comfortable with who they are and being able to stand up for themselves and keep themselves safe.
And that's, at the end of the day, a beautiful thing you just said. There are some people who have historically felt completely at a deficit when it comes to actual safety. And you have to realize, like, if you're annoyed at pride flags, let's not forget that you and I are old enough that we remember famous news cases where a young gay man was, once beaten and left tied to a fence in a desert. Like, that was within our lifetime.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Like, within your and my lifetime, there a horrific case closer to when we grew up of a black man being dragged behind a car until he died. Like, these were things in the news that anyone of a certain age knows exactly which stories I'm referencing. So when you say people need to be equipped to learn how to speak up for themselves for their own safety, it's like, I'm sorry if it annoys you, if you feel like it's going overboard in some direction that didn't exist when you were a kid. But guess what? You're not the one who was never given tools for your own safety.
Right.
And until every kid feels like they have enough tools at their disposal and knows all the pathways to keep themselves safe, then we as a community need to go a little overboard and building the infrastructure that keeps them safe. And my guess is that in 10 or 15 years, maybe we will have less of the stuff where your kid is going, I'm just being hammered about consent, but it's because it never happened when we were young.
Never. No.
So now we got to swing that pendulum real far in the other direction. Sorry
Agreed.
if that ruffles your feathers. It'll land in a normal place only when we allow it to overcorrect. Is it an overcorrection
Right.
right now? Sure, we can debate that, but it's a necessary overcorrection. And if you feel
Right.
like it needs to slow down, the way is not to avoid it happening. The way is let's dive in and get these lessons taught hard and fast. And that's how we swing back, not by continuing to ignore it. Because listen, you grew up Mormon, I grew up Catholic, two very different cultures that share a real ability to keep a secret. Keep a
Yes.
secret, you know?
Yes. Yep. Hmm.
Anyway,
Yeah, that was yeah.
I,
That reminds me of the next, yeah, what?
no, please, please,
What were you
please.
gonna
I'll
say?
follow your lead. I'll follow your lead.
Just the next part of my whole story, and how the church was involved in handling it. But so in this relationship for a while, my mom died during that time from cancer, which obviously makes it a whole nother level of disturbing that he felt like that he was taking advantage of me during that time. So just disgusting. He went, and then after that is when he went into business with my dad, and then that fell apart. Later went into business with my brother, and totally took advantage of him. This guy, ugh, it makes me sick to think about all the many ways that he took advantage of our family. But if it, I guess I would say it fizzled out. Probably just got bored of me, and I wasn't giving him the thrill that I was before. And I also fell in love with someone my own age and got into a healthier relationship. But even with all of that, I still was working for him, and he still considered him one of my best friends, and still, went to him with all of my problems in life, and he was still a part of my life. And then I decided when I was 20 that I wanted to serve a mission for my church. That's something that Mormon youth do. Kind of, it's definitely expected of the boys, and then the girls can choose to do that. And that was something I wanted to do. But to be able to go serve a mission, you have to be worthy, and that requires like repenting of things that you've done wrong in your past, things that are yeah, just whatever bad thing you've done, I guess. And so for me, this felt like a really bad thing that I had done. I carried the weight of, I shouldn't have been having this relationship with a married man. I did this really terrible thing. I need to be forgiven of this so that I can go serve this mission. And so to do that, you talk to your bishop. That's the leader of that ward, of that local congregation. And they have the authority to, just like a priest, to forgive you of the things you've done. So that was if I was going to be honest with myself and God, I had to go through him to receive this forgiveness. And unfortunately, he made me feel like, I mean, he went along with my feelings that I was unworthy, that I had done a bad thing, and had pretty much punished me for those actions. Mormons take the sacrament on a weekly basis, and and that's like a way to show your commitment to Christ. But if you're not worthy, then you're not supposed to take the sacrament. And so he decided that that was the right punishment for me, to help me to become worthy again. It's all, as I'm saying it out loud, I hear how twisted it is. Like, it all made sense to me at that time, and now I can see it for what it is, and just really how messed up that is. And these are, I still have a lot of respect for this bishop, because unfortunately you're just someone with higher authority decides who is going to be in these different positions. And then you're just called to these positions, you like asked to do them, but pretty much you're expected to do what the people above you ask you to do. So they're just regular, just like the guy down the street. I mean, my dad was a bishop when I was a kid, and it's just whoever, right? And so these people are not trained in the least to handle these kind of situations. And he probably just didn't even know what to do with it. And his goal was to help me feel like I was good and that Jesus forgave me. And so that was that's how he handled it. That was, I guess, what he thought was best at that time. Um, so then I just had to feel really bad and pray a lot and whatever till I felt like I was good enough again. And he gave me permission to take the sacrament again. So that's all my thoughts from your sharing how we hide these things, right? That was it. That was all that. Well, and then he also reached out to his bishop at that time, and I suppose got some kind of discipline. I don't know. I haven't ever heard anything that happened. All I know is that his bishop at that time was the only person that he has told or had to deal with, right? It was just that one, that was it, like that you shouldn't have done that. And then he went on with his life and continued. Maybe he had to take a break from being a leader in the church, but I know he has since been a leader in the church. So talk about sweeping something under the rug. Like it just didn't even it was just nothing. It was just, you did this wrong and now you need to repent and be better. And that part of the whole story is almost the hardest, like almost harder for me because then I carried that guilt for way longer than I needed to.
I mean, I have so many questions. I mean, this one's going to go long, everybody. As long as you're okay. And Heidi, just let me know when it's time.
Yes. No.
So where do we want to go for? I mean, one of the things I've been wondering
right.
about, because you did mention this, you have talked to his wife. His wife gave you some parameters for sharing the story, which makes me feel like you actually talked to his wife quite recently, whereas this stuff was a long time ago. Talk about that.
His wife. So I had not talked to her. So when I went to my bishop and I told him beforehand, I told Dee beforehand, I said, I feel like I need to talk to my bishop about this. And he didn't try and stop me, but he did say, if you do that, then I'm going to have to tell my bishop and my wife as well. And I don't know if that was threat or just, I mean, that was his comment. But I was like, no, I need to do this. And so at that point he told his wife. And so he called me. I was working for him at the time. He called me and said, you can't ever come back to work again. He paid me some money. He had his partner bring me my stuff at the place. So I lost my job that day. And then he said, my wife has asked that I never talk to you again. And so then that was it. That was the end of all communication. And his wife was a really important person in our family. And she was like, when my mom did die, she was one of those people that from the community that really reached out and was like super loving and kind and helpful. And obviously she was a problem for me, but for my younger siblings, she was a really important person in their life. And so it was a loss for her to lose that connection with our family at that time. I have not reached out to her ever until just like a couple of weeks ago before I shared this story, and just sent her a message. I just didn't want, I think I haven't shared it for so long to protect her, but I just came to a point where I was like, no, I need to do this for me. Like I'm done protecting him. I don't need to protect him anymore. And so I need to share this. And so I didn't like get her permission, but definitely just said, I just need you to know that this is what I'm doing. And I sent her what I was going to share online, and she replied back so quickly and was so gracious. And I do feel like your story needs to be shared, period. Just will you change the names that you have? And so that was a huge thing for me to feel her, like just that she recognized that how wrong it was as well, and
Are
how
they still
supportive.
together?
And then we had, yes.
They are. And she was
which
aware of, he
which
hadn't lied and said he told her. She was well aware of what you were referring to.
I wondered always and didn't know until, I mean, so in the communications we've had this last month, she said that she did know everything. There, like nothing was new to her, and that she stayed. And obviously, there's so much to be said about that too, because you have to remember this is 30 years ago, and in a church community where divorce is looked down on. And also, did she even have like women in our in the Mormon religion, women are the homemakers and you stay home with the kids and the husband provides. And so did she even have the ability to get out? Like I didn't ask those questions, but you have to wonder like why. And there is so much emphasis on forgiveness and just like letting Jesus fix everything, which can seem so wonderful if you can move on from things, but also problematic when things like this have to get ignored, I guess. I don't know. So why did she stay with them? I mean, I'm sure, yeah, I'm sure that was played into it so much. Like, did she have an option to get out? And what would she have done? Yeah.
Did you hear from her at all after you put your story up?
I have not heard from her since then.
And
No.
I imagine
But
you have not heard from him.
No, my husband sent it to sent the document, the essay I shared, to texted it to him, but he didn't reply. And I also I after you had your outrage with I made out with my teacher, it caused like it really did. I bring up a lot of rage in me, and I sent him at that time. I sent him like, "How dare you? What the hell were you thinking? I understand. Like, I just wanted to know I'm not stupid anymore. I figured it out, and what you did was wrong." And sent him that, and he never replied. So I think
So, hold on, because you had mentioned that you mentioned that you told your kids like, "Hey, this is this person." So he was still in your sphere of influence, but to the point where your husband had his contact on a text level.
He got only because that's a difference. We got that number. I was actually trying to find his wife's number and ask somebody, but they didn't have it. So they sent me his number. I wouldn't otherwise. He's not like my kids don't know who he is. None of he lives in a different state. I don't have any contact with him anymore. But yes, he knows this is out there and has never to me said anything to me, like never, I'm sorry. It's so many thoughts on it, because how much like do we share? What? Tell me what you're thinking.
Well,
and then I have more thoughts.
Because I've met your husband now multiple times, and he's great.
Yeah.
A really great guy. Yeah. And he and I have connected in our own right a couple times. But your knowing chuckle when you were like, my husband texted it right to him. And you like had a knowing chuckle where I'm like, I've met your husband. Sweet man. You guys have also been through so much. Mm-hmm. And I would not want your husband's rage directed at me. I would not want that. Not that I've seen him angry, but I don't want to. And I have to imagine that if he finds a focal point for his anger, like, let's say the married man who groomed his wife when she was a teenager, like there's a lot of like everyone who has listened to your prior appearances on the show, I think would agree. Like if you or your husband took a kickboxing class, I would not want to be the person holding the fucking pads. I would not want, you guys got some real angry that you can let out at life.
I'm the one you need to be afraid. Rick is the most,
you said his name. We can bleep it if you want, or we don't have to.
No, it's totally fine. You can leave it on.
Listen, I wouldn't want either of you mad at me. But hearing that he popped off and texted the guy,
isn't that awesome?
That's badass.
No. We knew that probably we wouldn't get any reply or any, this whole thing, sharing this, I couldn't do it to like punish him, right? Like, because I know that he might never read it. I have no control over what happens in his life. So So it was definitely more for me, and just for me to, yeah, I had to do it for myself and not.
So then it sounds like I was also wrong. Like you weren't warning your kids about this particular individual who's still in their sphere. It was more a theoretical thing, or it was like, oh no, you know this guy in our community? Watch your back. I may have been wrong about that.
No, even with our I was just like saying our family friends,
Got it.
you just
Got
like
it.
all, yes, not him specifically. No, 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 no. He's
Got it.
not around.
He's not around
anymore.
anymore.
Yeah.
Good.
No,
I was
no.
when
In fact, my dad recently died, and he was, so our families were so connected, and uh, there's so many different parts of the story. I'm not going to get into that a ton, but he was someone that I wouldn't be surprised if he was like, oh, I'm going to go to this funeral, even though he like did so many things to our family, but that's just how he was. So and it was happening in the neighborhood where I grew up at, because that's where my dad's people were. So we texted him at that point. My brother reached out to him and told him specifically that he was not invited to come. So that would have been a situation where I might have seen him, but he's not someone that I come in contact with. But
and you may have just said this, but there's a lot coming down the pike. Did your dad ever find out or no?
he did not. So I was so and why didn't I, it's just so interesting to think about why I didn't feel like I could share with him. I mean, my dad had his own history with them of like financially being ruined because he tried to go into business with him. And so I didn't want to add to that. Plus, for too long, way too long, I was trying to protect him, this awful man. And I was worried about my dad's wrath. I don't know. I wish now that I had shared with him. But we keep these secrets so close for whatever reason.
100%. And you also sit here and you go, is it a coincidence that some of the confronting of this waited until your dad passed? Like, is that just also, is that just on a fundamental
absolutely
arithmetic level? Like that needed to happen
Yep.
for you to be able to come up and take a breath on this one.
Right. Yeah, I think carrying the weight of my dad's reaction to it, maybe I just wasn't, I wasn't up for that. It was interesting when I had a number of people reach out to me after I posted this story and just saying, thank you for sharing. I don't feel like I can share my story publicly, but this is what happened. And one person that reached out was someone that her story was so similar to mine, and the person still is working in the school systems here. And her thoughts were, she's just like, I don't even want my parents to know, because it would break my heart to have to see the pain that they would feel knowing that this was happening under their watch, just even because how hard for that parent to find out. Because if I find something like this out that happened to my child when I was caring for them and trying to protect them, and to find out it happened, like how painful would that be for me too? So we protect so many people in these situations. Our parents, we don't want them to feel bad that it happened. We don't want the person's children to have to find out that their dad was awful, right? Like, and so, yeah, I don't know. So it took a lot of thinking through. Do I share this? Is this fair for me to, if his kids happen upon this story, is that fair for me to show them this mistake he made that maybe he's never made again? And why am I airing his dirty laundry? But then if we don't, then they keep happening because people feel like they can get away with these things. So I feel like that's a complicated part of it too.
I am Christopher Titus of the Titus Podcast.
I am Rachel.
And I'm Ken Highland, a.k.a. The Highlander.
When the rest of the world is screaming insanity, we scream sanity. We do a satire, comedy, news, and events podcast.
First and foremost, funny first.
Whatever's happening in the world, if you want to hear it in a way that doesn't rip your soul out, we'll make you laugh with it. At the end of the day, we just scream sanity. That's what we do.
Can't we just talk sanity? Because
They have to scream sanity.
Ooh.
So
Nobody's going to hear it.
so tired of you guys screaming.
I talk stupidity.
Well, that's true.
The Titus Podcast on all major streaming platforms, YouTube, and at ChristopherTitus.com. Titus Podcast. It's time to scream sanity.
Hello, this is M. William Phelps. You might know me from my #1 Apple Podcast hit, Paper Ghosts, or one of close to 50 true crime books I've written. I've been an investigative journalist in the true crime space for 25 years, and now have a weekly podcast, Crossing the Line with M. William Phelps, where I delve into a new missing person or murder case each week. Get it wherever you get your favorite shows.